Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel Data Tech. Today's video features a project walkthrough where we guide you through the complete execution of a data engineering project from start to finish. In this project, we'll perform data extraction, some transformations, and finally load the data into a target data store. For this project, we will be using a variety of AWS services such as Airflow, S3, CloudFormations, Redshift, Glue, and many others. So before I start talking about the project, I request you to kindly subscribe and like this channel. That not only helps the channel to grow, but also motivates me to generate more content of this nature. So please do like and subscribe the channel. In this project, we will take the open weather API data, extract using Python, store it in S3, and after that we'll perform some simple transformations and finally load that data into Redshift. So without further ado, let's begin by discussing the project infrastructure and the prerequisites required for a smooth execution of this project. So let's jump to the architecture or infrastructure. So this is the high-level architecture diagram. As we can see on the left side, the data source is the weather API. And don't worry about the weather API at the moment. We will look into the details of setting up and accessing this API shortly. Here we are using Python to ingest this data into S3. And after that, you can see we are using the Glue service, which is using the data but we ingested into S3 to store it into Redshift. So in Glue, we are performing some transformation and finally loading that data into the Redshift cluster. So Redshift is the target data store here. So to streamline the project from ingestion, ingestion, extraction, transformation, and loading, we are using Airflow. And the Airflow which we going to use in this project is the managed AWS managed Airflow. What that means, like, we don't have to set up the infrastructure related to the Airflow. Everything will be done with few clicks or using the CloudFormation as an infrastructure as a code. And you can see we have a S3 bucket where the DAGs is there, and there is another file requirement or txt. So don't worry about them. Like, when we are setting up this infrastructure, we'll look into them in details, but just these are important things. Like, DAG is where we store our workflow, or basically the workflow is the DAG, which is written in Python. So we'll store it in one of the S3 bucket, which is attached to the Airflow. And in the same way, requirement text file is a file which contains necessary libraries for the workflow, for example, pandas or something. And it is also stored in the same S3 bucket. And we'll look into all these things in details later. So let's look into the prerequisites for this project. So prerequisites for this project, the first one is, like, you need a personal computer and a stable internet connectivity. The second thing is, like, you need an Amazon account, the AWS account where we're going to perform this project. Third, like, you don't need any data or any software locally on your machine, because everything will be done in AWS, so nothing is required locally. And the last is, like, you need to have some basic understandings of Python programming concept, because we are not going into the details, or I'll say the basics of the Python. So these are the prerequisites for this project. Now let's look into the Open Weather API. The data we are using in this project is coming from Open Weather Map API. This API allows us to retrieve various types of data related to weather for a specific location. The API provides different endpoints, and each serving a specific type of weather data, such as, like, it could be the current weather data, 5-day forecast, 6-day forecast, or it could be like 16-day forecast, and even the historical data types. To use this Open Weather API, we need an API key, which is basically a unique identifier that authenticates a request to this API. We need to sign up on the Open Weather Map website to obtain this key. So once you sign up, you just need to click, once you sign up and sign in, you just need to click on your profile, click on My API Keys, and there is one default API keys, but you can generate more API keys too. Okay, so let me click on this. So once we generated the then we're going to make a request to the API. For that, we need to specify specific parameters in the endpoint, such as location, which could be like a city name, it could be coordinates, or a zip code. And we also need to specify the type of data we want. So which, as I mentioned, it could be like a current weather, forecast, historical data. In this project, we are going to request for a 5-day forecast for Toronto City. And the one thing I want you guys to keep in mind, like we are using the free version of the API, which is usually a good, unless like you have some real requirements. To get the endpoint, you just need to click on the API on the top. And okay, after that, so here it gives like various types of weather data which we were talking about, like current weather data, hourly forecast, daily forecast for 16 days, 30 days. There are so many. And as I mentioned, we are going to use the 5-day one because that's part of the free version. You can see here. And the same thing, if you want to use some other data sets for the free version, the only other data set available is the current weather data, which is here. Okay. Rest of them, you can see they are pretty much part of a subscription plan, so you need to pay for them. Okay, so once once you know what kind of data you want, you need to click on the API doc. So in our case, we're going to click on the API doc in the 5-day forecast. And here we will scroll down just to like this document give you the idea how to make an API call for this data. So if you see here, we have the endpoint which tell us like what we need to pass. We need to pass the coordinates and the API key. But we like this app already have a geocoding, so we are not going to worry about the latitude and longitude, or we need not to pass the coordinates. We'll pass the city name and the country name, right? So if you scroll down on the same page, you will find, one second, it should be somewhere. So this is the latitude, longitude. If I scroll down, keep scrolling. Yeah, so this is, yeah, you can see here. So this is the endpoint which we want to use in this project, which is like pretty similar to the one which we are seeing at the top. It's just instead of coordinate, we will pass the city name and the country code. The second one we are going to use because we're going to fetch 5-day forecast for Toronto City using the API key from our portal. And don't worry about, I know like my API key is visible here, but once this video is done, I'm going to deactivate this key, or I'm going to decommission my ID from this API. And the response format, this API responds generally with the JSON format, but that's the default one. If you want some other formats such as like XML and all, those are also available. And I highly recommend, before using any API, please make sure to review the API documentation to understand the endpoints, parameters, and usage guidelines, because a lot of times these things change. So it's always good to review the API documentation. So now we know what kind of data we are going to set up the necessary infrastructure for this project. We are going to deploy the architecture which we discussed before, using infrastructure as a code in the CloudFormation. Because setting up all these services via AWS console could be like a time consuming and confusing for a data engineer, because like all these services involve VPC and other network settings and configurations, and that's like not our expertise, so it could be confusing. So I have already prepared the YAML template required for this project, and this template is going to create like the following services. Like it's going to create the managed, like if I scroll down, like it will going to create the managed Airflow S3 bucket associated with it, Redshift cluster, and like S3 bucket for for the temporary storage of the query output of the Redshift, IAM roles, Redshift connection in Glue, VPC, security groups, route tables, endpoints, public and private subnets, net gateways. So this template is going to do all the heavy lifting for us for this architecture. And the GitHub link to this repository, I'm going to put it in the video description, so you can you can use the template from there, and if you want, like you can reuse it, or you can like customize it according to your your environments or requirement, like if you want to do more than what we are doing here. So let's go to our AWS management console, go to the cloud formation. Okay, and in cloud formation, click on create stack, and we will upload the template, choose the file. So the file name is Airflow Redshift template YAML. This is the same file which I was showing you guys here, and we will click on next, and we will give it a name. So we'll give it a name, data project. Okay, awesome. After that, just click next. We don't have to do anything else. Click on next, and same thing. We just acknowledge the that we acknowledge that AWS CloudFormation will create IAM resources. Just acknowledge that. Click on submit, and it will start creating the resources which we discussed. This setup will take around 15 to 20 minutes. So what I'll do, I'll pause the video and resume once data project stack is completed. Let's have a quick look into all the services. So I'll start with the Amazon managed Apache Airflow. So I'll go there. Yeah, so the environment is done. Let's click on this to see if our Airflow is up and running. So that's cool. Our Airflow up and running. There is no DAGs. We still need to do some few more things, but let's see. Our basic infrastructure is ready. Let's go to the Redshift, and let me close all these unnecessary messages. So we can see our data project Redshift cluster is also available. Let me click on this. Let's go to query editor. I just want to check if we are able to connect, because in our template we are creating our secrets in the secret manager. So this is our project. So let's click here, and then we'll click on AWS secret manager. That's where we are creating and this is our secret. Awesome. Click on create connection. It's loading. Oh yeah, we are able to successfully connect here too. Let's go to AWS Glue. Let's click on the connections. Okay, awesome. Redshift demo connection. So we also got the connection created, Redshift cluster created, our managed Apache Airflow created. Now let's go and check our S3 buckets. So we got our buckets created too. One is for Redshift temporary environment. This is the template one where it's created automatically, and the other two is already existing, or we need them, or we will be using them. One is for the AWS Glue, so anything all the Glue jobs and like a Spark outputs and all will store here, and this is we going to use this in our pipeline. Okay, now just go and check the last final thing. We'll check the IAM roles. Okay, we click on IAM roles, then click on roles, and if we see, okay, awesome. So we have two roles. One is for the Redshift and the other one is for the our managed Apache. Now let's go to our managed Apache Airflow. In our managed Apache Airflow, we can see it's available, up and running. Let's click on open Airflow UI. Let me close this. Okay, awesome. So now we can see our Airflow UI is up and running, but there is no DAGs here, and there is nothing in there. So first we need to do some manual configurations in Airflow to establish the variables and connections. But before that, let's have a quick look of the Airflow bucket, which is created using CloudFormation. So let's go to S3. And the bucket for our Airflow environment is this. Data project is the name of the tech stack, and this is the Airflow. And if we click on this, and you can see there is nothing in there. So although the bucket have been generated, but the directories and files are not there, like nothing in there. And what directories and files are required? To know that, let's go to managed Apache Airflow one more time. I want to give you an idea. Click on create environment. We are not going to create anything. It's just I want to show you, like if you go here, you can see here that the managed Apache Airflow use Amazon S3 bucket to load your DAGs and supporting files. So when we're talking about supporting files, that's the plugin zip file and the requirement files we're talking about. So we need to basically, like in our S3 bucket, we need to create a folder named DAG, and we need to upload our requirement files in there too. And like in our project, we are not using any zip file or any plugins, but if you like in case you need it, that need to go into your Airflow bucket too. So let's first establish the necessary variables and connections in Airflow, and after that we will we will create the folders and necessary or upload the necessary files into S3 bucket. It was just, I want to give you an idea that the bucket which is created by our IAC, it is empty. So if we go like in our S3 one more time, sorry, my bad. If we go into our S3 and you go to the bucket, it's empty. Okay, so let's first create a variable. So here we are creating two variables, one variable and one connection. So variable is basically a key value pair, and here we going to create the variable is the API key from for our weather open API, right? So I click on this, name it a key. I already have my key here, so I copy paste this. I already have it locally, but if you don't, just log in into your weather open API profile, and from the API keys you can get it. I'll click on save. And the other thing is the connections. So we need a AWS connection. The reason is because we want our Apache Airflow to talk with various services in our AWS environment. So for that we need to set up a connection. So let me go here, click on this, new. So let me check the name of the connection, like in my DAG. So I just don't want to like naming something else, otherwise like I need to change it in the DAG. So my connection name is AWS con. I'll go here, I'll paste it. Connection type, we will change it to Amazon Web Services. And then we need to enter an access key and a security key. Okay, so to get access key and security key, what you need to do, let's go to your console, click here, click on the security credentials. So after that, what you need to do is just you need to like scroll down, like in your security, click on create access keys. As you can see, I already created an access key. It's a very simple process. Just click on this create access key and say I understand. Okay, and here you can see you have an access key and your security access key. You can copy paste, but the warning which you were seeing before, because like I'm using my root account, but as we are doing a demo, so it's not a problem. Like it's not recommended to use the access key and security key at the root level, but it's a demo, so it's not a problem. But like once you are at this stage, like you can see your access key, but your security key you won't be able to see. So it's always good practice to download the CSV file. Okay, so after like you created your access key and security key, click on download. I'm not going to do that because I already have a key, but that's all you need to do to set up a connection in your Airflow. So you need that access key. And so let me go to my file. This is my file which have my access key and security key. And don't worry, I'm going to delete my access key and security key, so I'm not worried about like of misusage of this. Okay, let me go to my connection. So this is going to be my access key, and for security key I copy this, and 1 second, I think I copied spaces too. Copy, paste here, and you can see it automatically gets encrypted, but click on save. If you want to test, you can test it. I'm not going to test it. And now I'll go to the S3 bucket and try to create the same structure as we talked about it. So I'll go here. First I'll create a DAG folder. So 1 second, click on create, or sorry, upload. 1 second, sorry, I need to create a folder. So create folder, name DAGs, created. And for the requirement files, we can keep it here directly because it was not required to be part of any specific folder. So let me do one thing. I'm going to upload 2 DAGs here and 1 requirement file. So let me go to my bit bucket, so sorry, my GitHub. And if you look at, like, we have 2 DAGs and 1 requirement files. So DAG, first DAG name, or like one of the DAG name is Open Weather API. The second one is Transform Redshift Local. We're going to talk about them in detail, but for now, just to setting up, what we'll do, we'll click on upload. Before uploading, I want to do one more manual thing. So I'll go to my Transform Redshift, and here we'll click on edit this file. Like, we need to edit these files. Like, you can add it locally when you download it, or you can add it here. The other thing which, like, the thing which we need to add it here, we need to edit our roles. So if you see the role is here something like a data pipeline does, but I need to replace this with the data project. So I'll go into roles, and this is the project role for us. So I'll copy paste this into our DAG. And don't worry, I'm going to explain that. It's just, oh, 1 second. Yeah, it's data pipeline demo. Yeah, we need the Redshift one, and this role need to be passed at one more place, I guess. Let me just think about this. No, I think we're good. I'll check the other DAG too. Okay, if I go to the other DAG, do I see this role? No, not really. So we're good. Okay, let me go back and download these two files. Let me check if I already have these two files. Let me delete them from my downloads. Okay, let me download this file and also this. And so I already downloaded, I downloaded these two DAG files. Requirement files is already there. I can show you. In requirement we have only two libraries, pandas and request. Okay, so what we need to do, I'll go into our S3 which I created. One second, let me check where we are. So first we'll upload the DAG files. Click on upload, add files, and we need these two. Okay, click upload. Awesome. And let's do one more thing. Let's go back here and we go one level up and upload the requirement files here. Click on add requirement.txt. Upload. Now our bucket have the required structure. Let's go to the Airflow. So click here, go to Airflow, and in our Airflow, if we go to the UI, our DAGs should be synced there, but there has to be an I believe maybe one of them will be synced, the other one will throw an error. The reason is because that requirement.txt we haven't updated, like we just added, but our environment have not installed those things. So we're going to see that in a minute, like how we can update that, but let's see if our DAGs are there or not, or we see any error. Awesome. So you see like the transform redshift flag DAG. So there were like two DAGs, if you remember. If we go here, one is the open weather API, the other one is the transform redshift load. So only one DAG is available here, the other one is showing an import error. This is because like the requirement file is added to the bucket, but you can see no module name pandas. It is added to the bucket, but it's not configured here. So let's do one thing. Click here, click on add it. We'll keep rest of the things same, and let's go to the requirement, browse to the requirement file, go here, click here, choose, do next. We'll keep everything as it is, we don't change anything. Click on next again, and this will, what it will do, it will recreate our environment, and it will have all the dependent libraries which we need. So I'll click on save, and let's go back to environments. So you can see like this environment is updating, and it will take a couple of minutes. So in the meanwhile, I'll pause the video. And now we should not see the error, and we should be able to see both the logs. Awesome. So you can see both logs, Open Weather API and Transform Redshift DAG, both are available, and they're scheduled at once. That means like as soon as I turn them on, they will run, but only once. So, and it's a other way to run things manually. I don't, because it's a demo, so I don't want to put things on a schedule or something. Okay, and you can see there is no run, no last run, next run. You can see because the start date was, I put it in our DAG 12th of August. That's why you're seeing that. Recent task and everything is blank. Let's go and have a quick look of the code in our DAG. So I'll start with the Open Weather API DAG. That's our first DAG. So if you click on that, like this is how the UI looks. If you're coming for the first time, the graph is the place from where you start. So this is like you can see here, we have because the DAG is not turned on. That's why you're seeing them like there is no like color. You can see there are like so many colors, like when it's running, successful, skipped, up for retrial. No, like currently they are in no status because the DAG is here. You can see it's paused, or you can say it's not turned on. So it have two tasks. One is the extract API. The second is upload to the S3. And if let's go and check the code of this DAG. So if you are like first time interacting with the Airflow, so the most important things I'll say is the graph, like depending on which version of Airflow you're using. So the graph is the one, because there is another, there's like, I'm not seeing in 2.1, but there is another graph from where you can see the task in a different flow. But the graph is where you can see that actual DAG task in a DAG, like a directed acyclic graph shape. And rest of things are not, I'll say, critical at this stage. So other thing we wanna look into the code. Okay, so let's look into the code first, and you know how to go to the code. So in the same in the same row, you just click on code, you will land into the code, and you will, if you have to make any changes or anything, you can't make changes here. You have to make the changes in your bucket only. And currently, like our bucket, we are uploading it manually, but you can literally have like a Git version in your bucket, and you can upload code in your Git, and that will reflect here, like in your S3 bucket, and that S3 bucket will reflect here. But like, long story short, like you can't edit the code here. You can see the code, and let's understand like what's in the code. So the first 10 lines, or I'll say the first 9 lines, these are like, we are importing the required modules and library for the stack. And here some of the libraries which are like more specific to this DAG, but some of them are like you will find them in almost in all DAGs. So like the first line is like it's like a common line which you will find in all the DAGs. Second 2 lines is one is the Python operator, the second one is the HTTP sensor. I think we are not using this. Yeah, we are not using it. It's there for like it's of no use. The second one, airflow.models import variables. So if you remember, we set up the variable in our admin here, like our API key value. So we need that. So it is for that. These are standards like for JSON and datetime. And this one is critical for this task, is where we are importing an S3 create object operator from our Amazon AWS operators. So in terms of operators, like 2 operators are used in this. One is the Python operator, the second one is this. So here, like in the first line 9s, we are basically importing the required modules and libraries. Okay, and after that we are just like we are setting up the default variables. So default variables are pretty intuitive, like who's the owner, depend on the past, start date, how many retrials, all those kind of things. So default variables basically are those or default arguments are those arguments which are same for all the tasks. So whatever arguments are going to be same among various tasks, we need to keep those arguments or those values in those variables in default arguments. And after that, we are basically like in line number 20, we are defining the DAG. And if you look, or you can say like we are initializing the DAG. So the DAG name here is the identifier for DAG is the Open Weather API DAG, and that was the, like if we go and look, that was the name of our DAG which is coming up in the UI too. and then we are like initializing default arguments. So all the default arguments will be initialized. Schedule interval, as I explained first, it once, so it will run only once, or it's basically something like we normally do when we wanna like manually run things. And we set up catch up for false. Okay, that's cool. After that, we are setting up two variables where basically one is the API endpoint. This is the API endpoint for the open weather service, which we already talked about, like it's provide the weather data, and we are using the forecast one, like a forecast for 5 days. So that's here. And the parameters, this is the like a city and the country name, and the second is second variable is the app ID, which is basically the API key value. Okay, before I explain this function, let's go to our Python operator, and that will give us a better idea what exactly we are doing here. So basically this is like Python operator can like here we are defining our first task using the Python operator. Okay, basically this Python operators execute a function, like this is the task ID, like the first line is the task ID, but line number 43 is basically what that means is like our Python operator going to execute this function named extract open weather data. So then like because of this, like we have to define a function. This is the function we define. It goes here, and here if we look at the like look at the function, like function is pretty like straightforward. Like here we are getting the data, like we are using the request request library to get the data in the response, then converting that data into a JSON, printing that data. We are normalizing because like the data which we are getting from JSON, it have nested structures. So whatever data is required by us is provided in the list key. So we are normalizing that. But if you want, you can play with it. It's just for demo purposes. I picked the list. If you want, you can pick other one. And in the last line, we are using basically whatever output we got, we are pushing that to the XCOM as a CSV file. So what is an XCOM? XCOM is basically like a cross communication feature between the task, right? So here, if you think like a Python operator is one task and S3 create object is another task. So generally, like if this task execute and if it wanna pass whatever is the output of this task to the second task, in those cases we use the XCOM, and that stands for like a cross communication. It basically a feature that allowed the task within the DAG to exchange small amount of data. So if it is big, like that's not possible. It's only for like small amount of data. And for this demo, we are not getting too much or huge amount of data. That's why we're using XCOM. So what basically what's happening in this task is like this task is calling this Python function, and this Python function is requesting the data from weather API, and then finally convert like the response it got in a JSON, convert into a data frame, and that it's storing that data frame into a CSV as a like in the key final data in the XCOM cross communication of this TI. So we're going to use this XCOM output in our the second task. And if we go to our second task, which is very straightforward, like this is basically it creates an object operator. The task is upload the data to S3. AWS Con is the connection which we set up. This is the bucket where we are storing, and the key we like the output, which is we are getting from this first task, we are storing with the name of weather API, weather underscore API underscore data.csv. And the data for this key is coming from, if you can see, the XCOM key equal to final data, and the final data value is the data frame CSV which we created in this function. Okay, so before we run this or do anything, I just wanna like go to this bucket and see if we have any file in there. So it's always a good practice to just make sure, because if a file there exists there, it will fail. And it also, yeah, awesome. So there is no object, there is no key, so we are good there. And the last line is we are just setting up the task dependency. So what that means is like upload to S3 won't run until like extract API data is not successfully created. And this is like the beauty of the DAG. Like we don't have to, if a task is dependent on other tasks, we don't have to worry about it. Okay, as we do in those cron jobs, and they're like where everything is like time sensitive. It's not the event based. Okay, so this is our first DAG. Let's go to the second DAG. Awesome, transform. Let's click on code. Okay, perfect. So here also we are like in the first 4 line, we are importing the libraries which are required. So you can see this was like a common in both, but others are basically we are operating like from AWS, we are importing glue job operator, and we have some sensors here like external task sensors, and date time is another thing which was common. And here also we are setting up the default variable, initializing it, and everything is pretty same except the name of the DAG. Here the DAG is transform redshift DAG, and that's what we are seeing here too. So whatever name we provide here, that is going to be the name of our DAG. And here we have 2 tasks. So one is the glue job operator, and the second one is the external task sensor. And we'll start with the external task sensor, because this is basically what it's doing. It's basically sensing if the open weather API DAG is completed or not. And that's all it's doing. And it have like a timeout window, like all these like common variables where like the tag ID, but the most important like what it's doing, it's wait for this tag, open weather API DAG. And once that tag is done, like if we go to our code, once like if you look at the dependencies, I know like I'm going back and forth, but here when we define a task, order doesn't matter, but the dependency, how the tasks are defined in the last line makes all the difference. So whether like wait open weather API is the first task, but it was defined after this, but that doesn't make. This is basically when the dependencies are defined. That's how like task executed. So this is going to be first task where we wait for that, and after that, like this is done successfully, the glue job operator task will trigger. And this is pretty straightforward. Like here the task ID and job names are common things related to a task, and after that we have a script transform.py. We're going to look into that very shortly, but that script, what's our like script location, what's our bucket location, the connection which we already reason, what's the role. So this is a role we already changed. And after that, like if our job is created in glue, which version of glue we want to use, number of workers, what kind of worker type, connections. We are using redshift demo connection, which you remember like we created, so we passing it here, and then we passing the DAG info here. Okay, so before we trigger any of these tasks, I just want to go into transform. Want to give you like a quick view what's in the transform. Okay, let me go to my S3 buckets. script. Yeah, so here is the transform. Let's check it in our GitHub. So we have transform here already. Let me increase. That's too much. Yeah, that's perfect. So if you look at here, like basically it's a glue job which is written in Spark, and it's a very straightforward job. Like here we are importing like all essential libraries and all like Spark context, glue context, all those kind of things. Then we initializing Spark and glue context. And after that, if you look at this, this is basically in this part of script, we are reading that data from S3. Like, so this data, which our first tag is going to create, is we are reading that and then applying some transform, and we are doing a very simple transformations. We are renaming and just changing some data structures, and finally we are storing that into the Redshift. So if you're coming from the glue concept, like it's a very straightforward. We're reading the data from S3 like in this block, and this data is produced by our DAG1, and after that we are applying a simple transformations. We changing the names, as you can see, like the one of the field name, it was like main.fields underscore like. We just change it to fields like. Same thing for like a temp underscore min. We change it to minimum temperature, max temperature, these kind of things. Basic transformation. And after that we are loading this into our glue, into our Redshift. I just want to make sure like if we are using any role. Oh, awesome. So you can see here line number 57 that we need to change too, because the role here this is not the role from our current stack. So let me change that very quickly. So I click edit. Let me do this. Okay, we go to our IAM roles one more time. Click on roles, and we're talking about this role. So let's copy, one second, let's go to this role and copy this here, and we come here, just replace this. This is just an old role. So this, we should be good. Let me commit this. Perfect. Let me go to my downloads. Just delete this and download the new one. Awesome, the new is downloaded. Let's go to our transform. Oh, sorry, let's go to our bucket first. Not this one. Let's go to our S3 bucket. Okay, this is the bucket where we have our glue script. So let's delete this. Okay, awesome. Now go back and upload the new transform.py where we have changed the role. So click on upload, add files, transform.py, open, upload. And you know, before running, there is one place like we can go to glue and check like if our script is changing or not, because like sometimes what happens, like it's always good to double check things. So let's do one thing. We go to glue and we click on ETL jobs, and the existing was glue transform task. Look at this script, and you can see the data project is awesome. So this is glue transform task is coming from our DAG. Okay, you must be wondering like why it's glue transform task, because that's the name in our DAG here. The script name, the file is transform.py, but the name is coming from here. Okay, awesome. So let me do one thing. Do here, like go to our DAGs, and we can like start like as soon as we turn on them, they will start running. But this will wait until this DAG gets complete. So I'll turn both them on, and we'll go to Open Weather API DAG, click on Graphs, and see what happened. So it says running. Okay, awesome. This is completed. This is quite fast because like the number of rows we are extracting is not that high. This is probably like 40-50 rows. Okay, so both of these tasks are completed, and after this task we are expecting files in the one of our buckets. So we'll go and check that bucket. We go here, click there. Awesome. So you see there was like nothing in there, but now we see the CSV file. And in the second task, if you remember, like let me show you one thing very quickly. There is no table. So second task should do the transformations and create a table here. Okay, let me go back to our DAGs. So first DAG is completed. Let's go here and see what's going on. Okay, so it's still refreshing. So up for this schedule means like it might have waited for some time. Like you know there was a time window, and by that time the first DAG was not complete. That's why it went for a retrial. And if you have any confusions, just click on this and click on logs. It will show you the log, like what happened in the log. It got completed successfully, but if we look at the log, like it successful criteria met first, but I think before that it didn't met. You see, it has to reschedule. Okay, let's go back to the task again, and our transform task is running. And that's like another way, like if your task failed, you can go click here, click on log. That you can do. And the other things, these are important too, like when you are debugging something. So clear means like if you click on clear, it will rerun it. Mark fail, depend, like if you want to mark it fail, success, run, depending on like all these things, we can do various stuff. Okay, still running. It will take some time. We can refresh because sometime, yeah, it's running. It takes times because like here we are using Jupyter, sorry, not Jupyter, the glue operator. So we have to like start the Spark job. For that we need to acquire the resources and all those things which we passed in our DAG. Like if you go here, and I just want to show you, like in this DAG, like these are the, like if you look, like we are passing, we want this glue version, number of workers, worker type. So a lot of things we are like kind of allocating to the glue job. That's why it takes times. Okay, let me come back here. This is still running. Let's refresh it. Oh, this is done, success. You can see here. So now let's go to our Redshift cluster, because if you remember our second job, like it's a glue job, but in the glue job we are taking the data from S3, doing some transformation and loading into the Redshift cluster. So if we click on refresh, we should see one table there. Let's expand this schema, public schema. Awesome. So we see the weather table here, and let's do a select star from What's the name of the table? Weather data. Awesome. So now we can see the weather data is there. A lot of these things, which like we renamed it, right? If you remember in the transformation, fields like minimum temperature and all these, so they are according to our transform. That's all for this project. So in this video, we learn by following the specified steps, a complete data pipeline project is set up in the AWS. And this pipeline make it easy to get weather information from OpenWeather, save it on the S3 storage, and then put it into Redshift. And using the combination of Apache Airflow, Glue, and other operators, we ensure that this pipeline is fully automated. And that's all for this video. Stay tuned for upcoming video. Thank you. Happy learning.